Okay, good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Greg Lockwood and I'm Stakeholder Coordinator at the BC Centre for Employment Excellence. For those of you who are not familiar with the Centre, it was created in 2012 with funding from the provincial and federal governments to act as a research and knowledge sharing organization for BC employment service providers and employers. The Centre's mandate is not only to do innovative research, but also to find ways to share best practices with BC practitioners and employers and better integrate evidence into practice. We created this webinar series as a way to reach out and connect with practitioners. Through this series, we have highlighted new research by the Centre, but we're also tapping into the knowledge and expertise within the employment services community. You are invited to view all of our previous video recordings of webinars that we've posted on our website. Today's presentation is being delivered by the team leading the BC Partners in Workforce Innovation Pilot Project, or as it is also known by BC Win. BC Win is a collaborative and innovative pilot that began with employers and a network of local disability employment service agencies in the Greater Vancouver region last year to streamline the recruitment process, making it easier for businesses to recruit qualified, job-ready candidates with diverse abilities. Our two speakers today are the project team leaders, Jamie Miller-Dixon and Sean DeRaff. Jamie is the principal of McLeod Silver HR Business Partners based in Vancouver and the lead recruitment specialist with BC Win. She also is the project lead on the annual The Better Workplace Conference managed through the Conference Board of Canada. Jamie has an extensive human resources background of over 26 years, specializing in HR startup and management, workforce diversity and inclusion, recruitment, training, employee engagement, organizational transition, program development, project management, and other areas of positive change. Sean is our research coordinator at the Centre and also of BC Win. In his role at the Centre, Sean's work over the past 4 years has focused on developing timely and innovative research initiatives that support the needs of employment service providers and employers in BC. Previously, Sean was a senior researcher at Social Research and Demonstration Corporation for over a decade, covering a wide range of topics related to employment, training, income security, and community economic development. Today's presentation will last about 45 minutes. You are encouraged to submit questions and comments to our presenters in the questions feature of your panel. Remote CART, or live closed captioning, is now available during the Centre's webinars. You can find the link in the reminder email that was sent out this morning. And now it is my pleasure to hand the microphone over to Jamie and Sean.
Thanks, Greg. Good afternoon, everyone. It's our pleasure to be presenting to you today on this project. We're really excited to get this chance to reach out to practitioners across the province to feature what's been going on here in the Vancouver area with a pretty large group of partners who are working together to make this project happen. During the webinar, Jamie and I are going to go through how the project was established, as well as give you some highlights and lessons learned from the project's first year of operations. I'm going to begin by giving some overview of its background and its research objectives. And then Jamie will spend some time explaining her team's role as the recruitment specialist on the project, the partnerships that we've established with both employers and service partners in the Greater Vancouver area, as well as an overview of how BC Win's recruitment process works. If you're a practitioner in the Greater Vancouver area, you'll also learn about current and upcoming employment opportunities with our employer partners and how you can prepare your clients for these positions. I'll conclude by highlighting some of our research findings from the first year, as well as give you an idea of where we're headed going forward as we move into year 2. BC Wins, even though it's been only in operations for just over a year, has been a long time in development. The project, sorry, can you back?
I think it's on kiosk.
Sorry, we've got some automated slideshow going here. It originated through discussions involving leaders from service agencies and other stakeholders in the Vancouver area. And they came together to, out of a like-minded interest, to discuss how they might do a better job working together to engage employers to advance employment opportunities for people with diverse abilities. They wanted to build on lessons learned from some previous initiatives such as the Y-Step program, a partnership between Go2HR and the BC Construction Association that piloted a recruitment approach to match employers to people with diverse abilities in the tourism and hospitality sectors. So through these discussions, the leaders explored how they could work together to make it easier for employers to hire diverse talent, and how they could work together more collaboratively and collectively to increase employment outcomes for their clients. So some of these, you can see some of the members of that committee. They called themselves the Employment Action Committee, and they included Community Living BC, Open Door Group, Neil Squire Society, Burnaby Association for Community Inclusion, Flaherty and Associates, and McLeod Silver HR Business Partners. And our center, which was newly established in 2012, was really excited to be invited to the table as a research partner to explore how we might be able to develop out a pilot from these discussions. One of the first tasks that we did together as a group was undertake a feasibility study to identify some of the key sectors in the province which had the greatest workforce needs, and what businesses within those sectors we could support. This study led to the development of a proposal to the Ministry of Social Development and Social Innovation, or MSDSI, to conduct a research study that built on the lessons learned from previous initiatives to evaluate the development of a demand-based recruitment model for engaging employers to hire people with disabilities. The pilot, BC Win pilot, was officially launched at the Century Plaza Hotel in June 2015. It's funded by MSDSI through their Research and Innovation Fund, and we have 3 years of funding to learn about this approach and how it works for our partners. As a research organization, the center's mandate is to lead the project management of BC Win and evaluate its effects on behalf of its partners. So just to really focus in on what exactly BC Win is intending to do, it's testing a new approach to supporting employers who are committed to recruiting and retaining people with diverse abilities. It's really focused in on helping employers meet their current and future workforce needs by using a recruiter model to coordinate engagement with key sectors in a phased approach. And we're beginning with the retail, service, and hospitality sectors, before extending to other opportunities in other sectors. In this model, the recruitment specialist, in this case, led by Jamie, serves the hiring and retention needs of employers who are committed to tapping into a pool of talent that is being referred through a network of local disability serving agencies. In this model, the employer is the client of the recruitment specialist, who pre-screens suitable candidates onto the employer and then works closely with that employer, the candidate, and the supporting agency to ensure that there's a successful employment outcome for all parties. And Jamie will talk more about exactly how this all works in a moment. Using this approach, we're able to build some relationships with a small but growing number of employer partners to ensure that the supply of available candidates is able to meet their needs. The lessons and experiences of the initial recruitment phase are also informing the partnership about any adjustments that we need to make to the approach to ensure greater success for all partners. This project's focusing on three groups, three key opportunity areas where we see a real need. For employers, we know that many sectors in BC are experiencing workforce shortages, and I'm sure many of you on the webinar today are very aware of this in your own communities. They either don't have the staff now to serve their business needs, or they anticipate some major shortages coming in the future. What we saw through our analysis is that this is especially true for the service sector, retail, tourism, hospitality, and food services, the construction industry, and we're starting to learn about some real interesting opportunities in the tech sector as well. We're working with a set of employer partners who are in need of career-oriented employees, and Jamie will really focus in on what that means. These are employees who are committed. These employers are committed to workforce diversity and inclusion, but what they're interested in is a single point of contact to connect with a diverse pool of talent. For our service partners on the project, while many of them have been actively engaging employers for some time, they're recognizing that working in partnership to coordinate their engagement efforts is enabling them to achieve greater impact and connect their employees to some better opportunities. And we can't forget the third pillar in this triangle, the job seeker. And BC Win is excited to be working with job seekers who are seeking out long-term career opportunities with quality employers who can provide them with jobs that match their skills and interest. From their interviews, it is clear that job seekers want to be appreciated for their abilities and for the contributions that they make to the workplace. They don't just want a paycheck. They want to be working for employers who offer them opportunities to develop their skills and grow their careers. So I'm not doing a fantastic job here of advancing the slides, but I'll thank the team for helping me out here. By simplifying the hiring process, BC Win is demonstrating how supporting the human resources needs of employers who wish to be more inclusive has the potential to increase the participation of people with disabilities in the BC labour market. As such, it is bringing together employers, service partners, and other stakeholders to collaborate together on a developing model that has the potential to affect broader change around inclusive employment. And we really see this as a collective impact approach. And for those of you who are not aware, collective impact is defined as the commitment of a group of important actors from different sectors to a common agenda for solving a specific social problem. So this approach involves bringing together a group of diverse stakeholders, employers, service agencies, researchers, job seekers, who agree to work collaboratively through continuous communication and measurement to achieve a common vision. And this involves working together in a coordinated way to meet the human resource needs of BC employers. It involves increasing employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And it also involves working in tandem with some other initiatives to promote that have a similar mandate to promote inclusive employment practices. And we'll talk a bit about some of those other initiatives that we're partnering with in a moment. All of these initiatives reflect the growing awareness that BC has a wealth of skilled and talented people who are not yet effectively engaged in the workforce. And business cannot afford to overlook such an underutilized pool of talent, which has the potential to address their recruitment challenges and skills shortages.
Great, thanks Sean, and hello everyone. So you've probably all heard the term supply and demand. What this pilot uses is a demand-based recruitment approach, and it's really a new approach connecting employers to career seekers. So a demand-based recruitment approach means instead of starting with the job seeker, which we refer to as supply, it actually starts with the employer. And instead of starting with the individual career seeker, we start with the employer and we recruit for an actual employment opportunity according to what the employer needs by matching the right candidate to that opportunity. And in many ways, it works more like a recruitment search firm, but it's free. So here's how it's worked traditionally in the traditional model that starts with the job seeker. That individual will go through a discovery phase. Service organizations will do an outreach within the community to see who can hire that individual, who's able to provide either paid work experience or volunteer experience, or whether the person is hired. So traditionally, the job seeker is the client. Under the demand-based approach, it's actually the employer who's the client with BC Win, because we start with an employer partner who's committed to having an inclusive workplace, who wants to be an inclusive employer. They have a hiring need. So for example, London Drugs is one of our key employer partners right now. London Drugs has a cashier position. We start with that job opening, and then we reach out to our service agency partners to see who they might have available to be screened in for interviews. We then interview each candidate and we refer candidates to the employer. The employer goes through their hiring process. In some cases, they modify their hiring process. In other cases, they keep their same hiring process in place. And then with other employers, they just hire based on the recommendation. So it's quite different depending on the employer. But the key difference in the approach is that the employer's client is the client with BC Win. Here's some of our current employer partners. You can see it's a pretty wide range there. Some great employers too. Working with London Drugs, Edgewater Casino, Also working with them on their future Park Vancouver development in downtown Vancouver. And we'll talk about that a little later on. Working with employer networks through the Canucks Autism Network, which has brought us to a potential new partnership starting up in September with the Canucks organization. With C Prime Restaurant, located in the Century Plaza Hotel and Spa, they've been huge founding employer partners. C-SPAN is upcoming, although we've had a couple of people there. ASTTVC, they are the Association for Scientists, Technologists, and Technicians in BC. So essentially the tech sector regulatory body. They're coming on board with this now. A couple of cool opportunities with the cleaning solution and flip-flop transfer, which gives us a really interesting variety of large employers, smaller employers, different sectors. And something that we've just recently joined a partnership on is with Focus Professional Services. And those of you familiar with what Carol Simpson is doing in hiring people on the autism spectrum to work as software testers will know what that opportunity is all about. So some pretty interesting employer partners, and so far it's gone really well. It works well for employers, this approach, because our approach is to understand business needs, and given our expertise on the HR side, we partner as advisors with those employers to help them recruit talent. So they appreciate having HR expertise, and it's actually driven by their needs. One of the key things that we hear from employers most often is they appreciate that sort of one-stop, there's a central source that has access to a much wider network through the service partnerships. One example is an employer might get 10 or 12 different service organizations recommending in some cases the same candidate. So they appreciate having that one stop. They also appreciate having career-focused individuals, people who really want to be there, want to grow and develop in their career with that employer. And frankly, the cost of recruitment and retention is significant these days. So if they have career-focused candidates that want to grow and develop in their career, there's a real business advantage for them. One of the things we do that might be different from some other organizations is we actually interview every candidate going forward. So we pre-screen on behalf of the employer, and we focus on abilities in relation to the job. For the employers, they appreciate that we have expertise in this area. We have expertise in the helping them make reasonable accommodations. So for them, it's seen as less risky. That's what we hear from them most often. So as recruitment specialists, basically our role as a recruitment specialist, again, is to recruit for employers. We interview everybody. We also act as an intermediary. We bridge and collaborate with our service partners. So we have a full network of service organizations that we work with, and we'll often hear from service partners that say, we're really good at working with our clients. We can help them discover what their passion might be. We can help prepare them for interviews. But we're not really comfortable dealing with employers. We don't have that kind of experience. So we're able to provide that kind of support in the partnership with our service partners. We have recruitment and industry experience. We're well-versed and experienced in diversity and inclusion, and ultimately our goal is to make it easier for employers to hire. We also have on our team, we have an educational consultant, and that's Nora Flaherty. The role of the educational consultant is really to connect with post-secondary organizations that have training programs for students with disabilities or diverse abilities. Our educational consultant is experienced in education. She's got a degree in that field, and she also has experience in business. So she helps inform post-secondary organizations about BC WIN so that we can better facilitate opportunities for students with diverse abilities. And Nora also helps with pre-screening and some of the first interviews, and really is a huge support to diversity and inclusion overall. Again, goal is to make it easier for employers to hire, ultimately. So here's our amazing list of fantastic service partners that we get to work with. As you can see, there's quite a few groups that are partnering on this, and within those groups, there's even other organizations. So a recent campaign that we had go out on London Drugs recruitment opportunities had over 600 opens. So that's telling us that organizations are sending on to, within their organization, they're sending these opportunities onto their team. So that's what we do. When we have an employment opportunity, we send it out to our service partners using a campaign and explaining what the opportunities are and how to apply, and that can be forwarded on to other people as well. So yeah, quite an extensive list of service partnerships, and we're really thankful for the level of support we've had from our partners. So this is kind of how it works. The service partners interview and assess the job seekers that they serve. They then refer qualified candidates to the recruitment specialist. We don't facilitate through BC Win. We're not directly involved in facilitating supports, but that's where the service partnership comes in, and it works really well. If the individual requires additional supports or full wraparound supports, we work together to facilitate that. We look to our service partners to also identify any training or support or innovations that would be required and help us to improve employment outcomes pre, during, and post-hire. Also, the service partners are also actively engaged in participating in the research side of this project and some of our marketing initiatives. Now, what we do know and what we're seeing quite clearly in our results to date, not all career seekers use a social services agency in their job search. And we've heard some statistics that are around only 85% of people with disabilities actually use a social services agency as part of their job search. So as we're looking at year 2, our goal is to find ways to reach a much wider range of job seekers, career seekers with diverse abilities, and expand our service partnership engagement. So for what we hear from our job seekers, really people appreciate having that the opportunities they're going for, this is a career focus for them. So they might start as a cashier, and they can stay as a cashier for the entire lifespan if they like, but they also have opportunities to move to other areas, develop in their careers. That opportunity for growth is important to some people. There's a variety of jobs. For the job seekers, these are good employers to work with. Some positions might start at minimum wage, but continue to, with time, increase and significantly. Benefits kick in. So these are really good employers to work with. There's a respect for talent and a focus on ability, not necessarily their disability, a person's disability, but a focus on ability in relation to the job. They also appreciate a sense that they're being recruited, right? So you're being recruited and hired for something. There's a different feeling and a sense when you're going for an interview and you're being recruited for something as opposed to placed. There's an ease of disclosure. In fact, we do require some disclosure so that we can ensure that we're bringing out the best in each person during an interview, and we know what would bring out the best in each person on the job. Okay, so what we know now, as we look at how can we best prepare our candidates and what does being prepared for these opportunities, what does readiness look like for these opportunities that we're working with? Well, first off, and probably the most important, is that the person is actually interested in and motivated to work with that organization, see themselves in that position, that the person is ready for an interview, that they've practiced some key questions. We're still seeing people who come in for an interview who are not sure of what position they're interested in, or they haven't had a chance to practice some really, these are gentle interviews. These are gentle first interviews. They get more difficult with the employer, so that people are able to be ready for those first interviews is really important. The person has to be able to demonstrate relevant skills and experience. They have to be presentable according to the position. It's okay to come in jeans for an interview if you're going for a construction job, not to put down construction, but that's, that's appropriate for that environment. But to come in shorts and a t-shirt, maybe some flip-flops for a cashier position or a position in retail or customer service, we would expect the person to be more presentable. Because remember, we're on behalf of the employers, we're doing that first interview, so we would expect people to present themselves according to the position they're applying for. We also look to have people be able to identify their key strengths in relation to the position. If that person can't communicate that clearly in a job interview with us, we're not really sure how we would be able to fairly represent that person's key strengths to the employer going forward with a recommendation. Criminal convictions. So having no prior criminal convictions is preferred in some organizations. That's a 100%. So for example, going into a retail environment with a prior theft experience, a theft conviction, is that candidate won't go forward. But if it's a DUI conviction, that might be forgiven. It's not going to be a criteria. It's got to be related to the job. But having no prior criminal convictions is still what we're looking for. We need to know a clear sense of availability to work. So are we talking full-time hours? Are there days of the week that's not good? Are there times of the day that's not good? If the person requires transit to get to and from work, uses transit, then knowing that we'd have to look at shifts that are according to when transit's available. So these are the kinds of things we would expect at a minimum for candidates to be prepared for. We do look for a minimum of 1 positive employment reference. Ultimately, 2 is what most employers will look for. And we also would like to know clear accommodation requirements if required, that's identified up front, so we can best support that interview and on-the-job startup. So this is just a quick snapshot and a visual of the kinds of opportunities that we've been recruiting for and we're currently recruiting for. You can see it's a fairly extensive list and across many different sectors, as Sean indicated earlier. We have major recruitment underway currently for London Drugs retail store recruitment. When you think about it, this is the time of the year they do most of their recruitment for back to school and holiday season heading into Christmas. So we've got 23 stores in the Lower Mainland that we're currently recruiting for. So those opportunities are on our website. And we've got probably another 2 weeks before that will pass. By the time the stores get all their people hired, it's about another 2 to 3 week window there. ASTTBC is another really exciting employer that provides different opportunities in the tech sector. So we're anticipating some major startup with them in the fall. Canucks Sports and Entertainment, and as I mentioned, Park Vancouver, a new development around BC Place Stadium downtown with Edgewater Casino will be going in there. There'll be 2 hotels, one's a Marriott, a fantastic employer, and they'll have probably the biggest convention space in the city. So adding about 1,000 positions to their organization between now and next summer. It's been a little delayed with the building development. Okay, we'll share with you some of our results to date. That was as of July 31st, so we're sharing the results as of July 31st. The partnerships were 22 plus service agency partners. We're up considerably. We're closer to 55 to date. 12 employer partners. Recruitment results as of July 31st, we've had over 50 candidates recommended for employment. 18 candidates were employed with employer partners, and then there was a number of others in the hiring process that has gone up. We've created, process, you live and learn. Creation, we've got some online tools that we're using, a process to communicate employment opportunities and share out with our service partners and resources. And we're starting to coordinate, we have for the past few months, coordinate with other partners and stakeholder initiatives that have similar objectives. For example, Ready, Willing, and Able's partnership with Pacific Autism Family Center. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. So Jamie's talked about about what BC Win has to offer and how it works for our partners. And what I'd like to stress for you today is that it is not, at this point in time, an employment program, it's a research pilot. We're working together with our partners to learn how to develop out this model and how to assess its effectiveness for our respective partners. So I would just want to talk a bit about the objectives of the research piece here. BC Win is providing us an opportunity to develop out and field test a model to see if it proves to be a better way to connect employers to a talent pool of people with diverse abilities. We're also looking at this model as in terms of its ability to produce better employment outcomes for people with diverse abilities by offering a larger range of better quality employment opportunities. And we also want to identify, as we work with our partners, how and what we can do to change the model to make sure that it is more effective in the way that it's enabling employers to hire from a diverse talent pool and how to connect people to employment. In addition to some of these key questions, we're also looking at some secondary issues, like such as the extent to which it's creating opportunities for providing people with diverse abilities higher wages, a better match between their skills, education, experience, and their aspirations for employment. And then whether it's connecting people into a career, into an actual career, which will provide them more opportunity for advancement and growth within the organization. We're also looking at whether this model is showcasing the extent to which current employment services and supports are sufficient for supporting people who are employed through the project. And if not, what are some of the gaps that need to be addressed in order to support the approach? And finally, we're looking at whether this approach is scalable or transferable to other regions or other industries or employers in the province. I'll just talk a bit about the research methodology for a moment. For those of you who are interested in this, we go into more detail actually in our first year report, which you can find on the BC Partners website under the resources section. For those of you who are interested, what we needed to do is look at a new way to evaluate an approach such as this, where there wasn't a lot of examples that we can draw on, and we understand that the model will be developed and improved over time. So what we're using is actually called a developmental evaluation technique, and this enables us to document the innovative process and provide a feedback loop to the project's partners to adjust the model to serve our partners and other stakeholders more effectively. So development, you may be familiar with formative or summative evaluation techniques where the evaluator is somewhat removed from the process and looking at either how the project was developed out or what effect it had on its partners or its participants. This is kind of bridging that gap between those two approaches. And developmental evaluation is advantageous for examining innovative approaches such as BC Win, where there is a need to focus on documenting decisions and formalizing the learning and knowledge base in order to support a continuously adapting decision-making process. BC Win is proven to be a very iterative type of process where we're learning as we go, and that information is then fed back to the partnership team for continuous improvement. So developmental evaluation, or DEE as we like to call it, it utilizes many of the same methodologies and techniques of more traditional evaluation approaches, but it's unique in that it positions the evaluator as part of the project team. And in this case, the team that is leading the development of the concept, finalizing the design, and implementing new processes. Under this approach, the evaluator injects evaluative thinking into the process, provides feedback through monitoring and data collection, and assesses how the project is unfolding. And as you can see in our report, we've also highlighted some new areas for experimentation to help the project adapt to its changing circumstances. So under this DE approach, the research team is working with our project partners and other stakeholders to select the most appropriate techniques and methodologies during the early stages of the project to help guide the formalization of the model. And what we've been doing is individually interviewing our partners throughout the project and working with everyone to identify metrics that will track progress on a wide range of outcomes. These findings can then be reported back to the committee of pilot partners who can advise on adjustments that may be required. Sorry. So just I'm going to review some of our early findings from our employer partners, and these are all highlighted in our report. So overall, our employer partners have reported that the pilot is meeting a need to find employees whom they may not have found on their own or through existing channels. Through Recruitment Specialists, they're able to connect into a broad range, as we see, over 25 service partners who represent a wide range of different job seekers. Our job seekers have told us that they appreciate the individualized support that the recruitment specialist provides, which is really tailored to their needs. And what they're really happy about is that it's not a cookie cutter approach, where they're really where the recruitment specialist goes in, understands what the hiring needs are, and tries to find candidates who really can meet those needs. And they're also really pleased with the amount of feedback the recruitment specialist is giving them. They find this to be quite unique. It's creating a real strong partnership in that there's a good feedback loop from both the employer and the service partner that's all facilitated through the recruitment specialist. As we've noted before, this project's fitting well with other initiatives that employers are doing. And some of these include the diversity training resources that London Drugs is receiving and that have been developed through the Abilities in Mind initiative. But one of the things we want to emphasize is that each business has its own internal financial pressures. And as Jamie's talked about, they need to maintain a minimum baseline criteria that any candidates have to meet. And this project's been a really great opportunity for us to understand those criteria better and understand how best to work with employers to make sure that they can meet their own needs while enabling them to hire from a more diverse talent pool. Some of the challenges and opportunities that have been presented is that there's a high degree of willingness to problem solve through these challenges on the part of our employer partners. We've definitely seen that there have been some challenges, but we've been really pleased also to see that our employers are willing to and committed to work through these issues. And this is for those of you who heard Randy Lewis speak a few months back at the Untapped event. Hearing some of those experiences elsewhere and some of the challenges and innovative solutions that they developed was really inspiring to our employer partners. One of the issues that often comes up is the online application process and some of the behavior-based interviews that employers require from their candidates. And we know, and we've seen through the project, that these are not working well for all candidates, and they're being addressed in different ways. So our recruitment specialist is working closely, for instance, with London Drugs to place less emphasis on the online assessment process and really using the interview as an opportunity to learn more about the candidate. And then part of that process, Jamie's then able to work with our service agencies to prepare candidates for what might be coming up in the interview process to make sure that they're prepared for every stage. One of the challenges that we've come across is that candidates are not necessarily fully committed to the opportunity. They might be seeing it as a job versus a career, and we've been really emphasizing that in today's presentation, that our employer partners are really looking for career-oriented individuals. This pilot's aimed at fully engaging job candidates for moving them forward in their career, and that we found that some candidates might be interested more in securing a job and getting a paycheck, and we've been working with them and our service partners to make sure that they're focused on that career orientation. One of the other challenges that some of our new hires have struggled to meet the demands of positions, and we're working with employers to find ways to ensure that the candidates meet the requirement of the job, and at the same time ensure that candidates have the supports they need to be successful. BC Win itself doesn't provide a lot of supports beyond the recruitment specialist, and we work with our service partners to ensure that those wraparound supports are there to ensure success for both the candidate and the employer. And in some cases, for instance, some of these issues might be transportation or access to certain types of training, and those are areas where we have to work with our service partners to make sure that those supports are in place. One of the issues that's come up is the need to engage management throughout the organization. We do have a high level of commitment from our employer partners, especially at the top end. And our task as we move into the next year is to communicate to everyone in the organization that we're working towards and identifying ways to achieve that. And we're finding that this is happening as employers report that their managers and other staff are very, very willing to help and train and support new hires. So as we go through this experience and as managers become more aware of the initiative, we're able to have that communication process with them to make sure that they're fully on board and supporting people in the workplace. The project's had to work with our partners to make adjustments to recruitment where possible. And moving this pilot forward means that we need to have conversations around adjusting HR practices, as we've learned that the status quo does not necessarily lend itself to the type of inclusivity that we are working toward. With the recruitment specialists communicating on a regular basis with employer partners, it's opening up new opportunities to onboard new hires, such as work placements to evaluate candidates and bring them into the company in a more gradual or phased kind of way. Our employers want employees who can grow with the organization, and as Jamie talked about, this is a lens that she and her team are taking, and that's helping us shape the recruitment choices and communicate out to our service partners as to what types of candidates we're looking for in our recruitment process. In terms of our service partners, overall it's been a very positive experience. This is a new type of initiative. We're introducing something new, trying to address a gap, and learn how we can work with our service partners around their own employer engagement efforts. What our service partners are reporting is that they're really seeing a level of coordination that is unprecedented in their past experience. I'm really excited to be working with a larger group of employers, and all that entails. But they're also at the same time learning what it means to be demand focused, and really understanding what it means to have the employer as the client, as a central focus. The recruitment specialist provides input and feedback to both our employer and service partners to improve the hiring process and candidate preparedness for immediate and upcoming opportunities. And this helps ensure that the candidate is job ready for the types of available positions. And as a result, we've seen a lot of adjustments on the part of our service partners who are committed to working within this process. We've obviously had some early challenges, as we highlighted before. One of the key things that had to be developed early on was a common criteria for candidate job readiness, and Jamie worked with our service partners to establish expectations for this readiness. For instance, she created a checklist that the practitioner completes with the candidate before they're referred on to the team. The recruitment specialist is also providing some thorough feedback to the service partners about their candidate's suitability and job readiness. And this is a really important part of the relationship, is that ability to connect in with what the employer wants and have that communicated throughout the process, not only prior to the referral, but also afterwards, to really understand what worked or what didn't work so well. One of the key things that our partners were really interested in is the ability to plan in the long term for their candidates, to understand what employers' needs might be in the future so that they can prepare those candidates, their clients, for those opportunities. And we're really excited to see some developments in the area of training and other career development opportunities to prepare clients who may be a little bit further away from being job ready, but who might, with some of those supports, be ready in the future. And finally, BC Win has provided, we've seen that BC Win has provided some really interesting opportunities to engage larger employers at the corporate level. And this is opening up a broader range of opportunities. So for instance, a number of service partners, many of you on the call, may be engaging London Drugs at the store level. Through this pilot, we're able to coordinate and work with the corporate level and engage a broader number of stores, and which has opened up a number of different types of opportunities, including at the distribution center. So I just want to quickly summarize some of our early findings from the project. And once again, I encourage you to read through our reports where you can find more detail on each of these. But I just want to highlight the fact that we're really excited about the willingness and interest from both our employer and service partners to engage with the model. We've seen a high level of commitment to workforce diversity and inclusion, coupled with an interest in efficiently addressing very real workforce needs. Our employer partners have demonstrated that they're very willing to engage and help shape this model's strategic direction. Our service partners have reported that they're very pleased with the quality and number of employment opportunities that have been offered through the pilot. While there's been some ongoing concern that the positions being offered may not be necessarily suitable for their clients at this point in time, they have been very impressed with the quality of the opportunities and the extent to which their clients have been considered for available positions. Several of our partners have noted that increased communications and coordination with employers through the recruitment specialist has enabled them to understand upcoming employer needs and their hiring cycles, and has placed them in a better position to prepare their clients through training and other supports. We're seeing that BC Win is providing an opportunity to change employer perceptions about the value and contribution that people with diverse abilities can make to their business. By establishing quite a low-risk process for the employer to hire from a diverse workforce, the pilot is enabling employers to consider new opportunities for inclusion in their workplace. It is our expectation that employers' experiences with the pilot will only reinforce the benefits of inclusive hiring practices, leading to an even greater number of quality employment opportunities over the course of the project. A broader objective of the pilot is that working together with a diverse group of employers and in partnership with similarly focused initiatives, it's going to contribute to a change in the conversation surrounding this largely untapped workforce, really changing it from disability to ability. By connecting employers to diverse talent, BC Win is designed to maximize the number of positive experiences of inclusive employment by employers, co-workers, and people with disabilities, which may contribute to a broader change in how people with disabilities are viewed in the workplace and how they view their own career potential. Finally, we've seen some evidence that BC Win is, in its small way, we understand this is a pilot with a small group of partners, but it's contributing to a system-wide transformation by providing a specific approach through which partnerships can be formed and strengthened. Through the offer of a supportive process for employers to hire diverse talent, it is generating further opportunities for establishing strong partnerships, leading to further opportunities for collaboration on initiatives that promote inclusive employment practices across a range of employers and industries in BC. So what's in store for us in years 2 and 3? Well, we're already engaged with working with our partners to be more effective at tapping into talent and building consistent expectations around employment readiness. This includes providing feedback to practitioners so that they can better prepare candidates for upcoming opportunities and understanding exactly what our employers' needs might be. We'll continue to work with our employer partners to support the enhancement of inclusive recruitment practices that enable them to achieve their business objectives while tapping into a more diverse workforce. Jamie's already talked about the fact that we can only predict more demand for talent from our employer partners. BC Win, it's a small team we have here and we have limited resources, so we have to be able to prepare ourselves to meet this demand while ensuring that we are serving our current employer partners well. On the research side, the team's developing a set of common metrics by which we can track outcomes for our employer partners and our job seekers recruited through the pilot. One of the things we'd like to do is actually create a public dashboard that enables our partners and stakeholders to view our progress in a more real-time kind of way. Finally, we've begun discussions with our partners and other stakeholders around the sustainability of the approach beyond the pilot. And I think we've already had a question about whether this is informing policy or practice. As an independent research organization, it's not our job to make decisions about these kinds of things. However, we see great value in considering how the lessons learned from the project's design and its early implementation can inform current employer engagement efforts. Our partners have also expressed an interest in exploring opportunities for scaling the model to other employers, sectors, or populations in BC.
Okay, thank you, Jamie and Sean. We've still got about 10 minutes or so left in our time together, and I noticed there have been a number of questions that have come in, so we're just scrolling through them now, and I don't think we'll have time to get to all of the questions, but let's see what we can do here. So, Sean, you addressed the question around any changes in hiring policy.
I think this might be at an employer level.
Yeah, so at an employer level, I think the participant might be asking, have you noticed any changes to their own hiring practices? Jamie or Sean?
Yes, quickly, I can give a couple of examples at London Drugs where they recognize that the online assessment can be challenging for people who have diverse cognitive abilities. So we were able to get the ability to bypass, not rely entirely on those examples in our pilot stores where we have knowledge that the person has diverse cognitive abilities. It's particularly challenging for folks on the autism spectrum. The other shift in hiring practices is they shift away from behavior-based interviews. So when we know in advance that the behavior-based interview style format is challenging, we have modified the questions on behalf of the employers for them to be able to ask these questions in a very straightforward way in order to get answers in a straightforward way in order to be able to make a hiring decision. That's just two examples.
Okay. Another question. It sounds like someone is interested in knowing how they can partner with you. So what is the process for that?
Feel free to reach out to me directly. I think we have our contact details that'll come up on the screen. But bcpartnerswin.org, you see our website there on your screen. bcpartnerswin.org. You can complete the contact form, and I'll reach out to you. I'll get back to you within a day. Or you can give me a call at 604-290-3204, and I'm happy to talk to you about it in person. Thanks for your interest.
Great. I think someone was asking about job seeker eligibility. I think you did end up outlining that on one of the slides. And we will be sharing the presentation slides, the slide deck, in a post that will go up this week or next week on the center's website.
I can just add to that briefly. We use the UN, sometimes this question comes up and it's what's the definition of disability? We use the UN definition of person with disability. It's quite a broad, far-reaching description. So it includes people who have mental illness, people who have addictions. It includes people with physical or cognitive diverse abilities. So it's quite a far-reaching definition.
Okay. Someone's asking about a specific element of the job criteria in terms of having one or two employer references. Can they be volunteer or work experience? Will volunteer work as well in terms of references?
It can be, but the preference is that there be at least some work experience there. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just scrolling through this. We have probably hit a record number of questions that have come in for this webinar. Another question, someone's asking if there are opportunities to carve job positions. So I guess more of kind of a customized employment approach, or do job seekers need to meet all the requirements in that particular job description?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, in some organizations that we're able to make those kinds of accommodations. We have one person right now, for example, at Edgewater Casino. They're doing a huge portion of the job, but not all of it. We can work with job coaches as well coming in to help support that individual up front. But right now, at the front end of how we're working with these employers, our goal is to provide them the best candidates possible to do those jobs. Because when you think about it, many of these candidates are going in, they're the first time the employer has hired somebody with diverse abilities. So we want that person to be able to go in, do a great job, and set the others behind them up for success.
Okay. And another question about the interviews. Have any of the interviews been, or is there a possibility of moving towards more of a working interview, so hands-on, showing the employer what the job seeker can do with their skills and abilities?
Yeah, another great question, Delia. Yeah, we're not doing too many working interviews right now, but I can foresee as we head deeper into year 2 and 3, there could be opportunities for that. I know we have a couple of employers that have supervisors that would have experience in that area, and that would be a perfectly fine and acceptable way for them to interview. We're just not leading with that at this point.
Okay, and this question is probably, Sean, it's better suited for you to take a stab at. Someone's asking about regional growth, and have you thought at all about expanding beyond the Lower Mainland? Or, I mean, it's a 3-year pilot, so is it something that's come across in your discussions or thinking yet?
when we started off, we weren't sure exactly how big this would grow and where exactly we would be focused. Right now, you saw our employer partners. We've got this fairly small team of recruitment specialists that's trying to meet their needs. And we're really at the moment focused on the Vancouver region. We also understand that we're not the only game in town or in the game in the province, so we're trying, where possible, to connect our employer partners to other folks who might be able to help them. We had a situation, I think, in Kelowna where there was an employer, I think a hotel chain, that was interested in support, so we connected them with local service agencies. But what we're trying to showcase here is, through this pilot, a way in which you can engage employers in a really meaningful way that kind of moves beyond some entry-level positions and creates opportunities for real career growth for clients. And as Jamie has talked about at the beginning, it's really being about establishing those partnerships, that trust, and those relationships where you can then start to look at some of those more interesting opportunities around how they might onboard people who might be a little bit further, a little bit more distant from the labor market. So at this point, there's not a lot of, I don't think we have a lot of opportunity to move beyond the Lower Mainland, because we really want to make sure we're serving our current employers really well.
Okay,
do you have anything to add to that?
So we'll take this one last question that's just come in before ending for today. Someone is asking again about the criminal record challenge. So they're saying that would it be defined as having, like, similar to having a disability? Because many large chains tend to screen out candidates with criminal records, many of whom also have other issues like prior history of addiction, etc. So I guess the question is, how would you relate that to having a disability in itself?
Yeah, I'm not seeing criminal record in relation to disability, though I recognize some people who have disabilities and addictions may have a criminal record. So the way I'd like to sort of put some framework around this is, if the prior criminal conviction is at all related to the position of interest. So my example of, if somebody's been convicted of robbing a bank, applying to CIBC as a bank teller, you're going to be screened out. If there's been prior theft convictions, shoplifting, stealing, that's going to come up in the back check that's completed by London Drugs, and that person will be screened out. We do have people, though, that, for example, somebody 10 years ago got into a fight, or there was an assault conviction. It was the first time person did community service. In the greater scheme of things, at the warehouse distribution center, the managers went, hey, we can make an allowance here. So it really is position specific, conviction specific. We're seeing that trend anyway, that if the conviction was directly related to the position, that's fine. If it's not, it's not so fine. So hopefully that gives a bit more answer to that question.
Okay. Thanks, Jamie, and thanks, Sean. Thanks to both of you for your presentation today, and thanks, of course, to everyone for attending. So just a reminder that today's session was recorded, and we will post the video of the presentation along with closed captioning on our website and send you all the link in an email within the next week. And of course, we welcome your input and feedback as always. So when you leave the webinar, you will be asked to complete a short survey. We would really appreciate if you took a minute or two to share your thoughts. It will help us immensely in planning future events. We would also appreciate any suggestions you have for future webinar topics. Speaking of which, we do have our next webinar lined up for September 21st. And we're very pleased to announce that in celebration and recognition of Disability Employment Month in September, the Center is hosting a special 2-hour event, Autism in the Workplace. We've got a number of speakers lined up for this session. I know in the past our 2-hour webinars were quite popular, so we really hope that you can carve out some time to be able to attend the event next month. Keep an eye on our website and in our newsletter, as well as the follow-up email for information on how to register and be a participant on that webinar next month. So that ends our webinar today. On behalf of all of our presenters and my colleagues here at the Center, thanks so much for participating in today's discussion, and have a great afternoon.